All right, let's talk about fabrication materials and what the difference between Worbla and EVA foam is. EVA, or as it's officially known as ethyl vinyl acetate, is literally just floor mats. You can get different types of foam from either high to low density, and all that really means is how good or poor the quality is once you start cutting, dremeling, and wood burning it. Regardless of the type of foam, when heated, foam does emit a very toxic gas, so please, for the love of everything, don't be like me. Do it outside, do it in a ventilated area, do it with fans on, do it with masks on. Don't get cancer, okay? Thank you. I'm gonna die, it's okay. So the type of foam density that you have really kind of depends on what you're trying to do and your budget. I personally use low density foam because the only kind of foam that I can be able to afford in order to do any of my cosplay stuff is low density, which is just floor mats. I literally just buy floor mats. High density foam is usually higher quality. It's got cleaner cuts whenever you're like cutting and dremeling and stuff like that. It is more expensive though. High density is also usually what like the fancy cosplay shops are selling in order to be used for like actual foam crafting. Whereas low density is stuff that they do also sell, but most places are just providing low density foam at like a higher quality low density than any of the floor mats you would be able to find. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you have Worbla, which is a thermoplastic. There are multiple different types of thermoplastics that could be used for cosplay, but all of them are very, very different, and they change depending on like the squishiness of them, the texture of them, the heating temperature of them, etc. Worbla is this really cool material that when you heat it up with like a heat gun, it becomes moldable. So you can like squish it into silicone molds, or you can actively squish the pieces together in order to create like larger pieces, or combine small pieces together to create larger pieces. It's not as toxic as foam, but it's probably not a great idea to stand like right over it inhaling the fumes. Even if it does smell really good, I'm gonna admit I definitely breathe in a lot of Worbla because it smells good. We're not going to talk about my problems. The cool thing about Worbla is that it creates a much more rigid structure that can withstand like abuse a little bit better. So for context, I have my Katniss knee plate and my Alphonse shoulder. This is entirely foam with styrofoam spikes. So I can squish it, and if I squish it too much, it's going to crease, it could tear. If I punch it, it moves in. Whereas with this, it's a lot harder to squish, but even then, it's only squishing along the angles that I have. This is like, I'm putting my force into this. Now, not enough to break it, because I know I could snap it in half, but like, this is one layer of Worbla with 2mm foam on the backside, and this is already this strong. Some people, when they use this to make breastplates, sandwich the foam between it, and it makes it so durable also. It sounds a lot more dense. So this is really great if you need very, very rigid shapes that may be harder with foam to keep in that shape, but also if it's something that's going to take a lot of abuse or heavy wear, or if there's going to be a lot of friction or bending, Worbla is really great to make sure that it doesn't tear, crease, or potentially break. The downside to Worbla is that it is expensive for the amount that you get. Now again, I'm coming from the perspective of foam for me is very accessible because I am willing to pay for the lower quality foam, do more work, and have foam armor. It might not be on the same level of quality as like really, really high quality foam, but it works for what I want. Worbla you can't really skimp on. I have tried like the Hobby Lobby thermoplastics and some of like the cheaper variants. They're not good. It is worth spending the money to get the expensive crap, which is unfortunate because it does mean that you're going to have to put money into it and like really sit there and think, what am I going to use this for? Worbla is also a great alternative to foam clay for like tiny details, mainly because Worbla holds up, whereas as great as foam clay is, it's very brittle once it dries. So if you have tiny little like filigree details that you need and maybe they stick out or they have any kind of overhangs, they're going to break the minute that something touches them. Whereas with Worbla, you can give them a lot of abuse before they actually start to crack or bend. The other thing that you have to keep in mind with Worbla is if you do create a full large armor, not like Katniss, because Katniss is a very small armor, all things considered. If you're trying to make something like a World of Warcraft armor and you use Worbla for the entire thing, it's going to be exceedingly heavy. Some examples of things that I have personally used Worbla for because I needed that structure are Fighter Jester's shoulders, the entirety of Katniss's armor, Ysera's little tree pauldrons, and Keyless antlers. Otherwise, I prefer foam for most everything else because it's affordable and it's bendy and squishy and it's, you know, it's cheap. Let's be honest, it's cheap. The coolest thing though is that both of these materials are now accessible, whereas before they didn't used to be. And so now, like, anyone can take these materials and use them to create really awesome things. If you have any questions, leave them down below in the comments. Otherwise, I will see you all next time.